I can still hear the echo of my own footsteps in that empty house. It's strange. You'd think it would be peaceful, but it's not. It's unsettling. The silence is suffocating. I never imagined it would come to this, that I would leave without a trace. But here I am, sitting alone in a hotel room, staring at the walls, knowing that I've just set off a chain of events that will change everything. I thought I'd feel relief, but all I feel is regret. A week ago, I was still at home, pretending like everything was fine, like I wasn't suffocating under the weight of my own thoughts, like I wasn't watching her every move, wondering if she was lying to me, wondering how much longer I could take the uncertainty. My wife, Clara, was always so perfect. At least, that's what I used to think. She had a way of making everything look effortless, like the life we built together was made of glass, beautiful, delicate, and flawless. But somewhere along the way, it cracked. It wasn't one thing that set it off. It wasn't a single betrayal. It was 1,000 little things. The half-hearted smiles, the late nights, the phone calls she'd take in the other room, the sudden trips she'd plan without consulting me, as if I didn't exist in her world anymore. And I hated myself for it, but I couldn't stop myself from noticing. It's like the more I tried to ignore it, the more I couldn't. I'd been hearing whispers for months now, from people I barely knew, from a friend of a friend, a coworker, a random text that seemed innocent but made me question everything. "You should watch out for her," someone said to me once. But I dismissed it. "You're paranoid," I told myself. "Clara loves you." But deep down I knew. I had always known. I remember the day it happened. She had just left for work, and I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone, when I saw it. A message. Her phone had buzzed, and before I could stop myself, I glanced at the screen. It wasn't a long message, just a few words, but the way it was written left no room for doubt. "Can't wait to see you tonight. You make me feel alive." It was the final straw. I didn't confront her then. I couldn't. The words stuck in my throat, and I felt a cold wave wash over me. How long had this been going on? How many times had I ignored the signs, told myself that it was nothing, that I was just imagining things? That evening, Clara came home like nothing had changed. She smiled at me, kissed me on the cheek, and started talking about her day. She was so normal, so convincing. And in that moment, I realized just how much she had been hiding from me. She wasn't the person I thought she was. She wasn't my wife. Not anymore. I should have confronted her then. I should have asked her straight up about the message, about what was happening. But instead, I made a decision that I never thought I would make. I disappeared. I didn't plan it. It wasn't a well-thought-out escape. One minute, I was sitting in our living room, pretending to watch TV, and the next minute, I was packing a bag, throwing a few clothes in, and heading out the door. No note. No explanation. Nothing. Just a quiet departure, as if I were a shadow slipping through the cracks of our life together. I didn't even take my phone with me. I didn't want her to reach me. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her apologies, or her pleas. I couldn't listen to it anymore. I needed space. I needed to disappear. So I did. The first few days were surreal. I drove without a destination, just letting the road take me wherever it led. I stayed in cheap motels, ate at diners with cracked menus, and stared at the ceiling each night, wondering what the hell I had just done. What had gotten into me? How could I have just walked away without saying a word? But then, something strange happened. I started to feel free. It was a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. The weight of all the questions, all the doubt, seemed to lift from my shoulders. I could breathe again. For the first time in so long, I wasn't playing the role of the perfect husband, the perfect man. I was just me. And for once, that felt good. But Clara wasn't letting go. She began calling, texting, emailing. At first, it was just a few messages, but as the days passed, the tone shifted. "Elliot, please. Where are you? We need to talk." I could hear the desperation in her words. I could hear her guilt, her confusion. But it didn't matter. I had made my decision. I wasn't going back. The phone calls turned into something else. A week in, I noticed the emails started getting more personal. They weren't just about the search for me anymore. They were filled with regret, with pleas for forgiveness, with promises that everything would change. And at first, it didn't affect me. But as time went on, I began to feel something I didn't expect: guilt. How could I be this person? How could I just disappear and leave her like this? How could I leave behind someone who had once been my everything? But then, the strangest thing happened. She started getting creative. I don't know how she found out, but somehow, she hired a private investigator. I knew it was only a matter of time before she did. But the thought of her tracking me down, finding me, it unsettled me. I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to face her. And what was I going to say? What could I say? I had run away. I had left everything behind. I didn't know if I could even explain why. Now, the clock is ticking. She's getting closer. She's not giving up. And as much as I want to run, as much as I want to disappear completely, I can't help but wonder, what will happen when she finally finds me? Will she forgive me? Or will I finally have to face the consequences of my own actions? And more importantly, when she finds me, will I even want to go back? It's been 3 days since I left, and the reality of what I've done is starting to sink in. I didn't just leave a house or a life behind. I left a person, someone I swore I'd never hurt. Clara. She had no idea I'd even been considering leaving. I just woke up one morning, and suddenly, it felt like the only way out. I was suffocating, and leaving was the only way I could breathe again. But what I didn't expect was how quickly she would notice. I thought I had a few days, at least, to clear my head. I thought I could just disappear and get some distance. But within hours of me leaving, she was already calling. Then came the texts. At first, they were simple, almost like she was trying to convince herself that I'd just stepped out for a bit, that I was coming back. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Where did you go?" I didn't respond, and the silence felt both suffocating and liberating. Then the messages changed. "Elliot, please come home. We need to talk. I'm sorry." And then, "Please, I'm freaking out. Don't leave me like this." I could feel the panic in her words, and it made me feel something I didn't expect. Guilt. But I shook it off. I had made my decision. I spent my first night in a hotel room, unsure of what to do next. I hadn't planned this escape at all. I thought I would just drive for a while, find somewhere to hide, somewhere that would give me time to think. But the quiet of the room made it worse. Every knock on the door, every ring of the phone, felt like a reminder of the life I had just walked away from. The next morning, when I checked my phone, it was flooded with notifications. Clara had been busy. Texts, emails, missed calls, the usual. But then, there was a new message that caught my eye. It wasn't from her. It was from a number I didn't recognize. "We know where you are," it said. "Don't try to run." The message was chilling, and my heart stopped for a moment. It was clear. She wasn't just sitting at home crying. She was already looking for me. I don't know how she found out, but I wasn't about to stick around and find out. I quickly turned off my phone, locked the door, and ran. This was no longer about a few days of peace. This was becoming a game, a dangerous, high-stakes game where the lines between right and wrong were starting to blur. And I didn't know how far I was willing to go. I checked out of the hotel and found myself driving down an unfamiliar road with no real destination in mind. The only thing I could think about was how long I could keep running before she caught up. The thought was maddening, but there was something else that gnawed at me, something I hadn't expected. I was starting to wonder if I could live with myself once the dust settled. But for now, the only thing I had was time. Time to figure out what had gone wrong. Time to make sense of the decisions I had made. Time to escape a reality I wasn't sure I wanted to face anymore. The days started to blur together after that. I didn't care anymore about where I was going. The road stretched out ahead of me, endless and unknown, and that's exactly how I wanted it. I wanted to feel lost, physically, emotionally, mentally. For the first time in a long time, I didn't have to pretend. I didn't have to be the perfect husband, the dependable guy. I was just me, and that felt strangely liberating. But, as the hours passed, that freedom started to feel like a trap. I couldn't stop thinking about Clara. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the look of confusion, the desperation in her voice. She hadn't deserved this. She had no idea how bad things had gotten, how far I'd fallen. I couldn't even explain it to her. Not yet. I'd left without a word, without warning, and now I was stuck in this uncomfortable limbo. But she wasn't going to let it slide. She wasn't the type to sit idly by and wait for answers. I'd known her long enough to understand that. She was fierce when she needed to be, and she wasn't going to stop until she found me. It wasn't until the third day of my escape that I got the first hint of how far she was willing to go. I was in a small, rundown diner in some town I couldn't even name, nursing a cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. I wasn't even thinking about Clara when I noticed the man across the counter staring at me. He wasn't making it obvious, but his eyes kept darting toward me every few seconds. Something about him felt off, like he knew something. And then, when I went to pay the bill, the waiter slipped a small, folded piece of paper into my hand. I glanced down at it, reading the words, "She's looking for you. It's only a matter of time." My stomach sank. How the hell had she found me here? Was she already onto me? Was I really running out of places to hide? I left the diner immediately, walking quickly to my car, trying to act casual, but the panic was creeping up on me. I started the engine and pulled out, but my mind was racing. How was she finding me? Who was helping her? Was it just a coincidence that the man at the diner knew? Or had Clara sent someone? I had no idea how deep her desperation had run, but I was starting to feel the pressure. The walls were closing in. I'd always thought of Clara as someone who'd be lost without me, someone who depended on me for everything. But now, I was beginning to see her differently. This wasn't just about a woman trying to get her husband back. This was about someone who would go to extreme lengths to make sure I didn't get away with what I'd done. I thought about turning around, heading back to face her, to apologize and try to salvage whatever was left of our relationship. But the thought made me sick to my stomach. How could I go back to that life? To the lies? To the things I'd learned about her that I couldn't unlearn? The whole thing felt like a trap, and I couldn't bring myself to walk back into it. I drove all night, barely stopping for gas, barely pausing to think. My phone was off, and the outside world felt far away. For a brief moment, I convinced myself I could disappear completely, like I could wipe away everything I'd ever known and start fresh somewhere no one would ever find me. But then, as dawn broke, I saw the first sign of what would come next. I was in a small town on the edge of nowhere, just a blip on a map, when I saw the familiar black SUV parked in front of the only gas station in the area. It was a strange coincidence, or maybe it wasn't. The tinted windows and the way it blended into the background told me everything I needed to know. I'd seen that car before. It had been tailing me for miles. It was her, or, rather, the person she'd sent. The investigator. The one she hired to find me. The feeling that crept over me wasn't fear. It was dread. Dread because I knew this game was just beginning, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep running. I didn't stop at the gas station. I couldn't afford to. The moment I saw that black SUV, I knew I had no time to waste. I pressed the gas pedal harder, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in my chest. They were watching me. I didn't know if Clara herself was behind the wheel, but someone was tracking me. It was only a matter of time before they would catch up. I had been running for days now, but the farther I went, the more it felt like I was running in circles. Every motel I checked into, every road I took, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always a step behind. I thought I could escape, but now, it was clear that I wasn't going anywhere. The days had started to blend together, and sleep had become a rare luxury. I was always looking over my shoulder, always listening for the sound of a car engine. It was exhausting, but more than that, it was suffocating. Every time I thought I was safe, every time I allowed myself to relax even a little, I could feel that invisible presence lurking just outside the edges of my mind. I found a new hotel that night, a small, quiet place on the outskirts of a town I hadn't been to before. I thought I was being smart. I thought this time, I could lie low, stay out of sight, and let the world forget I existed for a while. But as I checked into the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. It was the same feeling I had back at the diner. The same dread. I tried to calm myself, to remind myself that I was overreacting. It was probably nothing. Just nerves. But deep down, I knew better. I sat on the bed and opened my phone, hoping for some distraction. Maybe a message from a friend. Maybe some sense of normalcy. But there was nothing. Just another message from Clara. "Elliot, please. I'm losing my mind. I need to know where you are. I just want to talk. Please." I couldn't bring myself to reply. The guilt was eating at me, but I couldn't go back. I couldn't face her. Not after everything. Not after the betrayal, the lies, the things I had seen that I couldn't unsee. As the night wore on, I heard the faintest sound outside my window. A car engine, idling. My heart froze in my chest. I couldn't see it, but I knew it was there. The SUV. It was parked just outside, in the shadows. They had found me again. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to make myself as small as possible. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know how much they knew. But the fact that they had tracked me down again made it clear that Clara wasn't giving up. She wasn't just looking for me out of concern. This was something else. This was personal. I spent the rest of the night lying awake, listening to every sound, every shift of movement outside. I couldn't escape it. I couldn't escape her. I had made a terrible mistake, and now it was only a matter of time before I would have to face the consequences. By morning, I was ready to move again. But this time, I wasn't running blindly. I had to outsmart them. I had to find a way to disappear for good. Because if Clara found me again, I didn't know what would happen. And I wasn't sure I could survive that. By morning, I had no choice but to leave the hotel. I couldn't risk staying any longer, not with that SUV still lurking around. It felt like a weight was pressing down on me with every step I took, like the walls were closing in. I grabbed my things quickly, not bothering to check out. The last thing I needed was for anyone to know I was there. I drove as fast as I could, not caring where I was headed. I just needed to get away, far away. But I also knew I had to be smarter about this. I couldn't just keep running aimlessly. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed a plan. I had to outsmart her, outrun her. And that's when it hit me. Clara wasn't just desperate to find me. She was getting too predictable. She was too focused on tracking me down, on finding me, and that made her vulnerable. I didn't know if she had anyone helping her, but I was starting to think she was working alone. I pulled over at a rest stop and took a deep breath. I couldn't keep running forever, but I also couldn't just let her catch up with me. It wasn't about escape anymore. It was about control. I had to get inside her head. I pulled my phone out, hesitated for a moment, then turned it on. There were dozens of unread messages from Clara. Some were calm, others were frantic. Some were almost pleading. Please, Elliot, I don't know what's going on. Please talk to me. And then, I'll do whatever it takes to find you. But one message caught my attention. It was from a number I didn't recognize. You can run all you want, but she won't stop looking for you. My heart skipped a beat. Whoever this person was, they knew exactly what was going on. And that's when I realized just how far Clara was willing to go to find me. She had already pulled in outside help. Someone who knew how to track people. Someone who wasn't just trying to find me for closure. They were after something else. I slammed my phone shut. I couldn't afford to trust anyone now. I needed to be careful. The only way to regain control of this situation was to stay 2 steps ahead. I started thinking, what was the one thing Clara wouldn't expect? The one place she wouldn't think to look? I knew what I had to do. I had to disappear completely. For good. I headed for the city. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I needed a place that would make me vanish without a trace. A small, anonymous town, far off the beaten path. I didn't care about safety anymore. I didn't care about finding peace. I just needed to make sure Clara couldn't find me again. And then, it hit me. The safest place to hide was right under her nose. I'd been running, but maybe the key to disappearing was to stop running entirely. To blend in. To become invisible in plain sight. But as I turned onto the freeway, I saw something that stopped me dead in my tracks. The black SUV, once again. This time, I didn't know if it was coincidence or if they were following me deliberately. But it didn't matter. I had to act fast. I made a sharp turn into a side street, heart racing. They wouldn't be able to follow me if I lost them in the maze of small streets and alleyways. My mind was racing now, the adrenaline pushing me forward. I knew this was my one chance to break free. But just as I sped through the alleyway, I caught a glimpse of something in the rearview mirror that froze my blood. Another car, this one with tinted windows, too, was tailing me. And this time, I knew. I wasn't just running from Clara. I was running from something much worse. The game was changing, and I wasn't sure if I could survive it. I had no choice now but to keep moving. No looking back. Because in this game, if you stop running even for a second, you lose everything. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being hunted. Not just followed, but hunted. The black SUV, the tinted windows, the eerie way it always seemed to be a few steps behind. It wasn't just coincidence anymore. I was being tracked, and every turn I made, every stop I took, only seemed to bring me closer to the inevitable. I tried to lose them in the side streets, weaving through narrow alleys, but the second I glanced in the rearview mirror, there it was again, the black SUV. Too close. The adrenaline coursing through my veins made my hands shake on the steering wheel. I couldn't afford to be caught. Not now. I needed a plan. I couldn't outrun them forever. My mind raced through every option I could think of, but nothing seemed like it would work. Every move I made, they were right there, following, observing. Whoever was behind that wheel was good. Too good. I took another sharp turn, this time into a parking garage, hoping they'd lose me in the maze of concrete. I parked at the farthest corner, hoping to hide in plain sight. I turned off the engine, sat in the dark, and listened. The quiet felt like a lie. My breath was too loud in the silence. Minutes passed, but I didn't dare move. Every muscle in my body was tense, every sound making my heart race. I couldn't leave the car yet. If they were still out there, they might be waiting for me to make a mistake. I couldn't afford that. Not now. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I dared to glance out of the window. No sign of the SUV. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. But even as I opened the door, the weight in my chest didn't lift. This wasn't over. It couldn't be. I stepped out cautiously, the echo of my footsteps too loud in the stillness. I had to make it to the exit without being seen. Every step felt like a countdown, like I was about to be caught at any second. I reached the stairwell and started climbing, trying to move quietly, but my mind was a mess. The tension was suffocating. I reached the roof of the garage and took a moment to look around. I had to make a choice. Stay hidden and wait this out, or risk everything and try to lose them again. Just as I was about to make up my mind, a sound made me freeze. A car door opening. I wasn't alone. They were close, closer than I realized. I turned toward the sound, heart pounding, but there was no one in sight. I was running out of time. This wasn't just about getting away anymore. This was about survival. If I didn't figure this out soon, I knew I'd lose more than just my freedom. The wind was cold on the rooftop, and I could feel it cutting through the thin fabric of my jacket. My breath was shallow, and my mind was spinning. I had to act fast. But my body, like a machine that had been running for days without rest, wasn't cooperating. My hands were trembling, my pulse erratic. I kept telling myself to stay calm, but it wasn't working. The moment I heard the car door open, it felt like everything stopped. My entire body froze. The sound of footsteps echoing on the concrete made my heart race. It was too close. Whoever was out there, they knew exactly what they were doing. They were hunting me, and I was running out of places to hide. I crouched low, hoping the shadows would conceal me. I peered around the corner of the rooftop, trying to see if the person had seen me. The silence between the footsteps was deafening. I could feel the air growing heavier with every passing second. My thoughts were chaotic. What if they had already spotted me? What if I was cornered? Then I heard it. A voice. Low, calm, almost familiar. I couldn't place it at first, but it made my stomach twist in a way I hadn't felt before. I crept closer, trying to stay as quiet as possible, hoping to remain unseen. He's here. We know he's here. I froze. That was Clara's voice. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. She was here. She was the one behind all of this. She'd found me. Not just through the private investigator, but she had come herself. The desperation in her voice was unmistakable, and it twisted something inside me. How far had she gone to find me? How much had she been willing to sacrifice? The fear that had gripped me for days was replaced with something else. Something darker. Anger. Betrayal. I had left her. I had run. I hadn't given her a chance to explain, to fix whatever was broken between us. But now, hearing her voice, I realized how far she'd gone. How far she was willing to go. I stood up, slowly, my legs shaking as the adrenaline kicked in. I couldn't let her catch me. I couldn't go back to that life, that lie. Not now, not ever. I looked around, my eyes searching for the quickest escape route. There was a fire escape ladder on the side of the building, barely visible in the shadows. It was a risk, but it was the only option left. I moved quickly, not daring to look back as I approached the ladder. I heard Clara's voice again, closer this time. He's up there. I know it. I didn't have time to think. I grabbed the ladder and started descending as fast as I could, the metal rungs biting into my hands. Every second felt like an eternity, and I could hear her footsteps following me below. She was close. Too close. When I reached the bottom, I didn't stop. I ran, not looking back. The streets below were dark, empty. Perfect. I knew I had to keep moving, to get as far away as possible. But I couldn't escape the feeling that something was different now. Clara wasn't just chasing me. She was after something more. And I was starting to realize, maybe for the first time, that I wasn't the only one who had been keeping secrets. As I turned the corner, I saw headlights approaching from behind. My heart stopped. It wasn't just Clara anymore. Someone else was closing in. I wasn't alone in this anymore, and I had no idea who was really hunting me. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me. The confusion, the fear, the guilt. But in that moment, as I ran through the narrow alley, something shifted. It wasn't just about running anymore. It wasn't about escaping Clara or whatever mess I had created. It was about finally taking control of my own life, owning up to the decisions I'd made, and deciding for once to stop running. The headlights were getting closer, but I wasn't about to let them catch me. Instead, I made a sharp turn, ducking into an old building, and then another turn down a set of stairs that led to an underground parking garage. My heart was hammering in my chest, but there was a strange sense of clarity settling over me now. I stopped for a moment, trying to catch my breath, but my mind wasn't as chaotic as it had been before. I knew I couldn't keep hiding forever. I had to face Clara. I had to make it right. I pulled out my phone again, reluctantly, and saw that there were dozens of missed calls and texts, all from her. "Elliot, please, just tell me where you are," one of the texts read. "I need you to come back. I can't fix this without you." Another, "I'm so sorry for everything. I never wanted to hurt you." I closed my eyes for a moment, the weight of those words sinking in. I had been running from everything, from her, from the truth, from myself. But now it was clear. I couldn't keep doing this. I took a deep breath and called her back. My hands were shaking and my heart raced, but I knew this was the only way forward. The phone rang, and then her voice came through, softer than I had expected. "Elliot, where are you? Please, please just tell me you're okay." "I'm okay," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I'm so sorry, Clara. I shouldn't have run. I didn't know what to do. But I can't keep doing this. I can't keep running away from you, from us." There was a long pause on the other end. Then, finally, she spoke. "I've been terrified, Elliot. Terrified that I lost you. But I understand now. I know I messed up too. We both made mistakes. But we can fix this. We can rebuild." I closed my eyes again, letting out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. For the first time in weeks, the tight knot in my chest began to loosen. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe this wasn't the end, but the beginning of something new. "I don't know how, Clara," I whispered, "but I want to try. I really do." And in that moment, I knew I had made the right decision. I wasn't running anymore. The chase was over. The road ahead was uncertain, but it felt like we were finally ready to face it, together. The last few days had been filled with fear and chaos, but now, there was something else. Hope. Maybe it was naive. Maybe it was too soon. But I knew one thing for sure. This was the first step toward something better. As I made my way out of the parking garage and into the daylight, I felt lighter. The weight of the past few weeks was finally starting to lift. And no matter what happened next, I had made the choice to face it. With Clara. With myself. Maybe we weren't perfect, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like we could be something real again. And that, in the end, was all that mattered.